your aura ring age
Yes.
is 11 and a half years younger than your actual age. That's insane.
We absolutely have to get high quality sleep. High quality sleep, that's the foundation for everything. Like, that's the foundation for greatness the next day. You literally are what you eat. Food is not just calories, it's information. Would I rather be made up of Doritos, or would I rather be like a grass-fed steak and blueberries?
So, what I want to start with is, what would you say are your 3 non-negotiable habits or protocols that you recommend for anyone who's wanting to optimize longevity?
Absolutely. Great question. The exciting thing is that things that are non-negotiables are either free or super low cost. So I know that this industry can get a lot of like press on the really expensive things, right? Like I have an H-bot chamber in my bedroom, but I would say sleep is number one. We absolutely have to get high quality sleep, because if you get even one night of poor sleep, it increases your blood sugar, your blood pressure. It increases your stress hormones, cortisol. And for women, that's really important, right? Because we know that we perceive stress at higher levels. So it can also decrease your natural killer cells. Your immune function is reduced. You also have less motivation. Your hunger hormone, ghrelin, is increased. So this is just one poor night of sleep. So going to bed early and getting really high quality sleep is definitely number one. I would say the number two thing would be getting morning sunlight. So the sun is kind of like nature's red light therapy. So it actually does give you a lot of benefits of red light therapy. There's red rays within the sun. So that's great. But also that morning sun, it's become very popular now. It tells your body and brain to wake up. So we are very dysregulated and disassociated from our circadian rhythms,
Mm.
which is our sleep wake cycle. So people are scrolling on their phones super late and feeling really groggy when they wake up. And so if you just get some morning sun, it's going to set your circadian rhythm and say, okay, it's time to wake up. It's morning. So not only will it help you have more energy, and it will also help you to fall asleep later that night because you have that anchor. So I would say that's number two. And I think the other non-negotiable is your diet and nutrition. So our bodies, it's, kind of what our mothers told us many years ago, but you literally are what you eat. Food is not just calories, it's information. So the way I think about it is, would I rather be made up of Doritos, or would I rather be like a grass-fed steak and blueberries, right? So your cells are made up of that information. Your brain, which is only about 2 pounds, it actually consumes about 30% of your daily caloric intake. So every bite of food that I take, I'm thinking, is this improving my brain function and my longevity? Is it beneficial or is it harmful? And everybody always asks me, like, what is your cheat meal? Or don't you always want to like have a Snickers or something? And the true answer is I don't, because
You crave more of what you eat, I feel
you
like.
totally do. Number one, you can reset your taste buds, which is exciting. So it's going to be hard for the first, month or so. But after that, for me, eating, blueberries is as joyful, I believe, as someone else eating a Snickers bar, right? I'm getting a lot of that same release of endorphins. So I don't want those foods. I call them like kind of negative foods, because I'm thinking, is it going to be beneficial or not? So to me, if I were to like eat McDonald's or something, for example, it would feel like kind of a form of self-harm. If I know that might sound really extreme, but I've changed the way I've thought about food. It's for energy, it's for vitality. And if I were to eat something that is not beneficial, it would make me feel a lot worse. So for me, it's like, why would I do that?
Also, I like that you talked about changing your palate because so I stopped eating McDonald's. I think my last time eating it was in college, like 3rd year of college.
Love that.
Okay, I'm 33.
Yeah.
So, I was with my friends and they were like, "Do you wanna try a bite of a chicken nugget?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it because I wanna see
Yeah.
what it's like." And I really didn't like it. I was
Mm.
like, I've, like, redone it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's been, like, years and years since I had this, and, of course, like, it's not that I don't like to eat out, I just don't like this traditional fast food. It's
Yeah.
just not for my
Did
taste
it taste
anymore.
like food? Because I don't even
No,
remember.
it wasn't like chicken. It
Okay.
wasn't like to me,
Right.
it didn't taste it tasted like not it like, if I were gonna go get a chicken nugget, I would just want it, like, I don't know, I'd do it at home or something,
Yeah, right.
and
It's
that would
like,
be, like, better, or even at a nice restaurant, I feel like it would taste like actual chicken, but
yeah.
this was, like, kinda rubbery. I was like, "I don't know what this is."
For some reason in my brain, when I think about, like, fast food or these, food-like substances, really,
Yeah.
like, it's not really food, it's this kind of, like, man-made, chemically engineered food. I just, like, think about eating styrofoam or something. I'm like, you kind of like, it's kinda the same. It's like styrofoam has a ton of ingredients and then, these chicken nuggets. And also, when I was in the airport, I looked and I saw on the, like, food board, it's not even nearly as cheap as it used to be, right?
No, it's actually like my brother was telling me and he was like, it's actually like pretty expensive to even just get McDonald's now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's insane.
I think it was like, and don't quote me on the number, but I believe it was like $17 or something for one of theirs, like, combination meals.
That's crazy.
And so
You can get
I would love.
actually like a good burger,
Yes,
like a good
right?
one for that much.
But that's the thing too, is I feel like, and I wanna preface that I completely understand that not everybody has access to this,
Mhm.
right? And I, grew up on the standard American diet. I grew up on Pop-Tarts because it's what, we could afford. And so I completely understand that. But if you are wanting to get healthier and starting by mastering these, foundational pieces that we talked about so far, I think you can definitely get pretty much a good portion of the way there, right? By just grocery shopping, shopping on the perimeter of the store. I know prices are more expensive than kind of ever, but I would say if, a meal at McDonald's is 17-ish dollars, somewhere in that range. I mean, you can get a really healthy, mostly organic meal if you make it at home for that price.
I agree. Okay, so I want to touch on the sleep piece, okay?
Yeah.
So how much sleep do women even need and how does that change throughout our cycle?
Yeah. So the literature says between about 11 minutes and 20 minutes. What I found in my N of one studies, and I think a lot of women can relate with this. So I did a month-long experiment. And so I went to bed at 8:30 every night. That's when I go to bed every night. And then I just woke up naturally.
Mhm.
And I'm married. So my husband was also, going to bed and waking up naturally. And I found that I need about at least 8 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
When I'm in late luteal going into the early follicular or
Mhm.
bleed phase, I need sometimes even more, an hour and a half,
Mhm.
which makes sense, right? Our bodies are undergoing this entire inflammatory process of shedding our lining and then the bleed. So, literature says between 11 and 20 minutes more. And from what I found, I need at least about an hour more than my husband.
That is really interesting. And then, okay, I need you to explain why it's better. Okay, so I think people think that just hours is all that matters,
Yeah.
whereas it actually matters when you're going to bed as well, right? Like it
Yeah.
can't just be like the same 8 hours going to bed from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. versus like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. to whatever time you wake up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to say first, just getting high quality sleep is like step one. So if
Hmm.
you can't get into bed before 10, then at least you're getting high quality sleep. But you're right. There is a big difference between going to bed early versus going to bed later. And it's really kind of dependent on two things. So, one is it's completely out of alignment with our, again, natural circadian rhythm. So, our ancestors would rise with the sun and, fall asleep as the sun set or, shortly thereafter, depending on the season. So, number one, it puts us into that circadian alignment, which our biology thrives on. That's what we've experienced for millennia. So, one, circadian biology, but two, if you go to bed past, let's say 10, I think you should be in bed before 10, then you have the opportunity to get a second cortisol spike. So, you get the second cortisol spike, which then can
After
keep
10?
you, yeah, roughly. I
No,
mean, everyone varies slightly. Yeah,
really?
but you'll get a second new cortisol spike, so you don't want that to happen, right? Because then you're gonna be up for who knows how long.
So that's what people call the second wind.
The second wind, exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can avoid that by going to bed before 10, and then the third thing is that if you don't go to bed before that, then your sleep cycles, which we have about 90-minute sleep cycles, we have light sleep, we have deep sleep, and we have REM sleep. Our deep sleep is when, our hormones are built mostly and optimized, so important for women, for hormonal optimization. Also our brain's glymphatic system, which is like our cellular cleaning system, is most active during deep sleep. You'll actually miss out on some of those deeper sleep cycles because we are used to this circadian biology. We're meant to get the deepest sleep at first,
Mhm.
and then REM sleep and light sleep come a little bit later. But if you skip and go to bed later, then you're probably not getting as much of that deep sleep. So could lead to potentially hormone dysregulation. Of course, you're not getting as much brain clearance. So many reasons to go to bed before 10.
Okay, that's really interesting because I thought that I was pretty good. I
Mhm.
sleep usually between 10 to 10:30, but now
Okay.
I'm like, okay, maybe I need to aim for like 9:45.
Ideally, yeah. I mean, I would love to hear, how you feel too. We are all bio individuals, so I'm giving some
Honestly, I
general
do
recommendations.
feel better. So, like, the earlier I go to bed, the better
Yeah.
I feel, but I'm also definitely, like I like to wake up really early in the
Mhm.
morning. My husband's a little bit different-ish, as you know him,
Yeah.
but, he is definitely a night owl. So,
Yeah.
he comes back from the gym, I'm not even joking, at 8:30 PM.
Oh my gosh.
And then he eats his dinner, and by the time he's done his dinner and we've, like, gotten, like, an hour to hang out, it's 9:30, and I'm like, "Okay, like, we've barely gotten time." So that's what
Yeah.
kind of sets me off, but when he's not at home, like, we're, traveling for work or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll go to bed at 8:30. I don't
I
even
love it.
care. I'm like I'd be so happy.
No, I mean, I love that. And you have to think about so the time that you're getting with your husband,
Mhm.
that bonding and that like sense of security
Yeah,
and happiness, there's also something to that,
of
right? And we
course.
can't leave that out of the longevity conversation because we know that feeling like socially isolated is as dangerous as smoking, they say.
Yeah.
So, definitely important to have that time together. I mean, I have a lot of recommendations potentially for your husband. Sounds like there's a little bit eating too late,
Yeah.
working out too late. We wanna try to get our resting heart rate as low as possible before bed, so if you are doing intense exercise and eating,
Mhm.
it's not gonna allow you to get your heart rate as low as possible because if you do that, then you get the highest quality sleep.
Okay, I love that we are talking about this because I actually want to talk about resting heart rate and HRV.
Mhm.
So, actually, for our audience who may not know what HRV is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so HRV is heart rate variability, and it's essentially the variations between heartbeats.
Mhm.
So, ideally, a higher HRV is marked by better health.
Mhm.
So if you think about your heart beating really fast, let's say you're anxious or stressed or consuming a lot of caffeine, if your heartbeat is really fast, there's not a lot of potential for variability. But if it's beating slow, then there can be more variation. So it's correlated to your heartbeat. So if your heartbeat is fast, HRV will probably be lower. If it's slow, then your HRV will probably be higher. I think Aura gives stats of like 40 to 80 is in the healthy range. Anything under 40 is either, chronic stress or overtraining. The elite athletes that I've seen are at like 100. So it's not just the stress, but it's also your cardiovascular conditioning. Because if you think about it, if your cardiovascular system is really well conditioned, your heart's going to beat slower.
Mm.
So that's going to give the ability to have more variation. So um, instead of focusing on just the number, though, I think it's also important to focus on the change, right? So you want a more consistent HRV than it being all over the board. Like I've seen HRVs like one day it's 16 and then it's 60 and then it's 20. You want to maintain more of a streamlined or consistent HRV.
So then if someone is wanting to increase their HRV, I guess the best way to go about it is actually to address the resting heart rate situation first because they're
Yeah.
correlated. So it basically get your resting heart rate down as much as you can.
Yeah, and there's really 2 ways that I think about it. So this is a big goal of
Uh-huh.
mine for this year is I wanna get my HRV over 100. It's usually
Wow.
somewhere around 60. So, that's a big goal, and how am I gonna do that? So, number 1, I'm reducing stress. I mean, I have been an entrepreneur since I've been 17. I've just been go, 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 and, owning your own business, you have a lot of pressure applied to yourself because you're responsible for individuals and families and all these things. So, number 1, I'm reducing my stress, and just by being married, that's already been a game changer for me because my husband, he really lightens the load and he tells me like he wants me to relax. So that's been super helpful. So doing that, really like focusing on reducing coffee intake. So I stopped drinking coffee completely now after my first coffee, which is in the morning.
Do you have
That
matcha at all in the day or what do you do? Or
I
nothing?
don't I don't have a ton of matcha. I'm either doing coffee or green tea,
Uh-huh.
and then just water for the
Okay.
rest of the day. Because we also know the half-life of caffeine is like 5 to 6 hours,
Uh-huh.
so it can interrupt your sleep if you're having it, later in the afternoon or even late morning.
So
So
even green tea, would you say counts as that or are you okay with having green tea later on in the day?
Slightly later on. I don't know what the half-life is of green tea.
Yeah.
I would assume it's somewhat similar.
Uh-huh.
But if we know the half-life of coffee is 5 to 6 hours, I
Mhm.
mean, we wanna be really careful. So I'm done with coffee by, like, 7 AM.
Yeah,
Um
I've actually I was just doing a podcast with a friend of mine right before you, and I was
Mhm.
telling her that I for the first time in my life, this has never happened, but I felt like I was so fatigued
Mm,
that I was doing 3 to 4 coffees a day, which has never in my life happened. I'm like
yeah.
2 a day max. So now
Yeah.
I'm doing a reset where it's just 1 coffee a day in the morning
Nice.
and that's it. And I feel like I started to do a walk before coffee as well. So like
Mhm.
getting the sunlight in before going for
Nice.
coffee or having my coffee. And I feel like even that has made the biggest difference because I don't feel like I need any more throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think sometimes we often, like, grab coffee too just because it becomes habitual.
Exactly.
At least
Yeah.
that's what happened to me in the past. Like, I
Hmm.
enjoyed the taste of it. I
Yeah.
enjoy the process of making coffee. Coffee can be healthy for you, if you get good quality coffee. So, coffee is also one of the most heavily pesticided crops.
Hmm.
So, that means they're spraying a lot of glyphosate on it.
Hmm.
And we want to avoid that because, it's a carcinogen essentially. So choosing organic or biodynamic coffee is really important, especially if you're going to be like consuming it every single day. So, yeah, reducing coffee, but reducing stress in general. Also, I think it's really important for women. So, we know that women experience higher levels of stress. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're having more stress than our male counterparts, but the way we perceive it is higher. So even when I look at my ring versus my husband's, his baseline stress is in restored almost all day. It's wild, right?
His life.
It's wild. And he's CEO of a company. He's incredibly busy. He works more than I do. He is more stressed on paper than I am,
Yeah.
right? But they've just built us this way that women,
So we're more
perceive
sensitive.
we're
Yeah.
more sensitive. We are a little bit more emotional. We have larger fear and anxiety centers in the brain than men do. So it makes a lot of sense. And also, I think I don't have science to back this up, but I feel like women were kind of made to hear babies, crying and just be aware of children, whereas men are more like focused on one single task. So, I look at my stress and it's just higher baseline than my husband. So I build in intentional parasympathetic activation 4 times at minimum nowadays.
So what do you do? What does that
Yeah, I
involve?
never did this before, but because I have this new goal, it's mostly looks like breath work or a walk. So I have 2 small walks. So we know that nature will, activate parasympathetic nervous system. We know that walking and changing our visual aperture can be really helpful. So 2 of them are walks, in my neighborhood, which is great, and then the other 2 are intentional breath work sessions.
How
So
long are they?
about 20 minutes each.
Uh-huh.
And it also helps to break up the day from work too, right? Because we're only really meant to be working in 90-minute blocks.
I
After
agree.
that, our focus, completely we've set these crazy standards for ourselves to operate like robots. And I did this. Like, I used to work like 80 hours a week when I started the clinic. And now I'm just trying to pay more attention to my natural cycles and rhythm and how I feel and energy levels in, luteal versus follicular. So yeah, I've been finding that really important, intentional. So I block it out on my calendar.
So then when are you doing these walks? Like, is it in the middle of the day and then are you like alternating the walk with the breath work?
Yeah. So I start my day off with the breath work.
Uh-huh.
And then my second block will be a walk, and then I'll do a breath work, and then I'll do a walk. I have this little device at my
Uh-huh.
desk. It's called a Moonbird.
Uh-huh.
So it basically inflates and deflates to really slow down your breathing because you want it to be slow, long breaths. But it's also kind of like a breath trainer. So I'll do that the 2 times a day, and then the 2 walks as well, which might seem like a lot. But number one, I'm getting more steps in. But I've seen the change on my aura ring. I'm actually going to make a post in the next few days of what my baseline stress was a year ago
Mhm.
versus now. I mean, literally, I got a notification today from Aura Advisor saying that my daytime heart rate has downshifted. So, by
Wow.
incorporating these types of practices, it's been really helpful. And again, women just need these practices more than men.
Well, also, I found that just from like a business owner standpoint and what it does for my productivity, I find that I take a lot of my meetings while out on a walk. So if
Mhm.
I have to be in front of my screen, of course I will. But if I don't have to be looking at my screen, I will take that meeting while walking. And I
Yeah.
find that I have better ideas.
Mhm.
And even if I just go for like a 15-minute walk in the middle of the day, I find that I come back and I'm more focused. So
Yeah.
it's like you force yourself to sit in front of your desk for what? Like, your quality of work may not even be at the level that you need it to be at.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing with this idea that like in the grind culture that I kind of like experienced early on. It's like, no, like sleep when you're dead, and it's like absolutely horrible. It's like, no, your productivity is going to be so much less. Get
Exactly.
high quality sleep. That's the foundation for everything. Like that's the foundation for greatness. The next day is getting high quality sleep. But we've kind of been told that going to bed early, you're not working enough. So I'm glad that entire kind of like conversation is out the window a little bit now.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, you know how you said that athletes, you've seen that their HRV is super high.
Mhm.
Do you have any recommendations from like a training perspective on how to have a lower resting heart rate? And also, you mentioned that obviously working out too late in the day. I know that sauna is probably the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Sauna's amazing for sleep, but you wanna do it about 2 hours
mhm.
before bed. So that's
Okay.
when I do my saunaing
Yeah.
now, because if you do it right before bed, it's gonna increase your resting heart rate.
Exactly. So tell me about like the training protocol for someone who may be wanting to either decrease their resting heart rate over time or increasing their HRV.
Yeah, so just improving, and that's the second part of the HRV conversation, is improving your cardiovascular health, right? So there's a few ways that I do that. So my weekly training schedule, I'm trying to hit every single mark of longevity. So I'm
Mm,
focusing on regular things like strength training and cardiovascular, but I'm also thinking about VO2 max training. So if you improve your VO2 max, you're definitely going to be improving your cardiovascular system. So for anyone that doesn't know what VO2 max is, it's essentially how well your body can use oxygen.
mhm.
And VO2 max training is a great way to improve your cardiovascular system. You can start with just once a week. And the way you could do this is it's called Norwegian 4 by 4. But I had a conversation with Dr. Stacy Sims, and she said for women, it should be 4 by 6. So the 4 by 4 is all out. So you're trying to get like 90 to 95% of your max heart rate for 4 minutes and then 4 minutes of recovery. But this for women, I learned from her that it's better to have 6 minutes of recovery.
Okay.
And then you repeat that 4 times, and then you do that once a week.
Oh my God, Kayla. So, the gym that I go to, it's called Monarch for you guys who don't know the gym, but essentially it's founded by a doctor. They're like
Mhm.
very like you have a coach that you work with for your training, you have a nutritionist, your blood work's included,
Yeah,
physiotherapy, all of the things. It's like
love
very
that.
longevity focused.
Yeah.
And they would make me do this training.
Oh, yeah.
I was literally I thought I was gonna die.
It's so hard.
It
It
is
really is. But
insane. Now
it
I like
yeah,
I'm gonna get back to it, but I've been lazy. I'm like, I can't do it today. I can't and I've been
yeah,
skipping it for the months, but
yeah.
now I understand that it's
Well, not only for your cardiovascular system, but when you do training like this, like HIIT training, so it's incredible for your mitochondria. It can actually improve the mitochondria that you have, make them stronger, better. And we know that, the majority of Americans have mitochondrial dysfunction. It's a
Mhm,
huge issue right now. And for women too, we have the second most mitochondria in our oocytes and our ovaries. So I'm
mhm.
always thinking in terms of like improving female longevity. How can I improve mitochondrial health? So that HIIT training and this VO2 max training is great for improving the mitochondria that you have, but also um, to build new mitochondria. Essentially, kind of the old dysfunctional mitochondria can start to die off when you do training like this and be replaced with stronger mitochondria. So,
Okay, so I actually have a question. So, there I feel like with all things health and wellness, things go through phases. Okay. So there
yeah,
was this phase of like heavy hit training,
yeah,
and then there was I guess stuff that came out about the fact that heavy hit training may not be good on female hormones.
mhm,
So what are your thoughts on that? Because is it just about the fact that maybe in the past it was too heavy an emphasis on just hit training and now we're just trying to find a balance and that VO2 max once a week is still really important. Like, what are your thoughts?
yeah. Yeah, it can be confusing, and it's also everyone is so bio-individual, right?
Totally.
So, if you're a woman that is under immense stress, let's
Mhm.
say, and your heart rate is super high, you test your cortisol, it's high, then HIIT training might not be the best for you right now.
Mhm.
I think that if you have normal, average levels of stress and you feel like you can push yourself, then hitting every single metric of what we talked about longevity is important. So, yes, HIIT training, I do that, once a week I'm doing the VO2 max, and then I do some sort of other type of HIIT training, like just some sprints and one other time a week. So I'm doing that twice. I'm doing strength training 3 to 4 times per week. So it's just not one thing, right? Like, we need to be focused on all areas. I also focus on power, so I'm doing on one of my, like, HIIT training days, I'm doing some speed squats and some, box jumps because we don't wanna lose those fast
Totally,
twitch
yeah.
muscle fibers, right? So it's not an all or one thing. You really have to open up your mind to doing multiple things on different days. I also really focus on, stretching, mobility. So we have strength, we have cardiovascular, we have the VO2 training, mobility, and stretching. All of that is covered in my weekly workout because those are all the areas that we need to be thinking about as we
Mhm.
age.
So then
Yeah.
how does someone balance this out while kind of caring for their hormones as well? So
Yeah.
say you are under some degree of stress. Like
Yeah.
I'm talking about the busy girls out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Like we have either high performing jobs or businesses or
Mhm.
whatever. Do you recommend that, like, once a week someone does VO2 max alongside their strength slash Pilates or whatever workouts they're doing?
Yeah, I think that you definitely can. I think you can also, optimize it with your cycle, right? So,
Mm,
in our follicular phase, which is days, 1, and day 1 is the start of your bleed, so that marks the start of your, entire cycle. So, days 1 through about day 14, is our follicular phase.
mhm,
So, we have a lot of estrogen that is really protective and helps you recover really fast. So,
mm,
let's say that, you're borderline high stress, but you still want to improve your cardiovascular system because it's really important, right? Like,
totally.
cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of both men and women. So we need to be thinking about this and we need to be improving our cardiovascular system. Then you can do the majority of your HIIT training in that follicular phase. Whereas, and through ovulation is another great day to like hit PRs, do your absolute best, go your hardest. And then when you move into the luteal phase, so after ovulation, if you have an aura ring, you can also see your temperature actually changes a bit post ovulation. Then you can dial it back a little bit. For me, I don't really have any symptoms of PMS at all. Like
Okay.
that's kind of another side note, but I think a lot of it has to do with gut health and hormone health and having that in balance. But if you feel good, I also don't want to discourage people from doing VO2 max training in the second half of the cycle because if you feel good, I think you should still do it. But let's just say you want to completely go textbook with your stages and your cycles, and you could do your heaviest training. Same thing with like cold plunging or hermetic stressors. So I used to do cold plunging all the time. I watch, or really early on, all the medical research is on men. So when we look at what are the best protocols or therapies for longevity, and then when I started, it was all for men by men, essentially
Yeah.
on men. So I was doing a lot of cold plunging, but I was watching my thyroid decline. I was watching my hormones become dysregulated. So now I do cold plunging at a much higher temp. So I'm doing it at like 40 to 45 degrees, whereas my husband could do it at like 34. And I'm doing it for less time and I'm doing it only in the follicular phase. I'm not doing cold plunging anymore in the luteal phase.
So what's your cold plunge protocol in that case? Like how I love that you're saying that you have a higher temperature. Are you still getting in an ice bath? How many minutes? How many like cycles of it are you doing?
Yeah. So again, just doing it in the follicular, so like days 1-ish through 14. If you don't feel well on your bleed, then you can completely skip it. But it could also potentially help with some of that cramping
Yeah.
because it releases endorphin. So I do the whole time, the whole follicular phase. I do it for about 2 minutes at about 40, 45 degrees.
Mhm.
I have a cold plunge, like an actual device
Mhm.
that is at my house. So it's not with ice. But I found that really beneficial. And so I'm just doing it basically days 1 through day 14 for about 2 minutes. I do mine in the early afternoon because few reasons. Number 1, our cortisol is highest in the morning. And the other thing to know is that women have a higher response to stimuli with cortisol than men. So if my husband and I both get in a 40-degree cold plunge, my cortisol is going to spike as a woman faster than his. So that's something else to consider while doing this cold plunging. So now I'm just doing it in shorter durations and keeping it all in the follicular phase. I will do sometimes cold showers in the luteal phase, but just really quick. And again, bio individual.
What are your thoughts on contrast therapy? Do you like to combine it with sauna?
I don't too much anymore. I think it can be really helpful for increasing like growth hormone. I think for men, it can be really helpful for like boosting testosterone. I think if it makes you feel good and
Mhm.
you enjoy it, definitely. But now, just the way that my schedule works, I'm not really doing it so much. So I'm doing my cold plunge around like noon because I use it as like a second coffee. So I
Oh,
get
I
that
love
big
that.
like dopamine increase and the adrenaline increase. So I'll do it then, but I don't do sauna until later, and I do that for sleep, so it just doesn't really fit anymore, but if it makes you feel good, I think there's a lot of good science around it, and as a side note, sauna is, like, one of the best things that you can do for your longevity,
I love
so,
that. And would you say that actually talk to me about sauna. How does it help with longevity? What are the
yeah.
markers that it helps with?
Yeah, so it helps from a variety of different ways. It releases something called heat shock proteins. It also increases your blood flow. So it's almost like exercise. It's giving a lot of those benefits, right, that you would get with exercise because your blood flow is increased so much, your heart rate is increased. So it's mimicking exercise. I think that's where a lot of the benefits are really coming from. But the numbers are amazing. So it if 4 or more times per week. And keep in mind that the sauna studies are done on Finnish saunas. So these are like standard heat saunas. But I've interviewed Dr. Soberg, who is like, complete expert in cold and hot therapy. And I asked her about the infrared sauna because I have an infrared sauna. I have a Finnish one too, but I enjoy the infrared bet more. And she said that she believes the benefits are similar, just go in a little bit longer. So the studies say 4 or more times per week at about 176 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. So if I'm in the infrared, I just go in a little bit longer. But detoxification is a huge one. We know that we are dealing with a higher than ever toxic burden. Women experience roughly, they believe, double the amount of toxins than men do because of personal care products, makeup, shampoos, fragrances. So detoxing is a huge part of maintaining that health. But yeah, with those 4 sessions or more per week, there is a 40% reduction in risk of all-cause mortality. I believe it's 66% reduction in risk of dementia, and there's a massive reduction in having a cardiovascular event. So it's a pretty big bang for your buck, I think.
Wow. Okay, so you have officially convinced me to use the sauna 4
Yeah.
times a week.
Yeah. I will say though that it's been interesting. So I started doing all this research on saunas. And I found that a lot of these sauna companies are using wood glues and like plywood and varnishes on their
Mhm.
saunas, and they off gas these VOCs into the chamber. So I kind of found this company that, long story short, but now my husband is the CEO, and we're actually involved in the company because I loved it so much. It's called Heavenly Heat. But I just say this to encourage everybody to do your own research, because the last thing that you want is to be sitting in a sauna that's using all these wood glues that's then off gassing that into the chamber.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
we
know.
all get heavenly heat saunas.
I mean, I would love that. Um,
That's incredible. So they're like a very like clean, high
yeah.
quality brand
Yeah, I found
essentially.
them first because the company was started 30 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and the saunas were built for people with chemical sensitivities. So if you have chemical sensitivities, you can't be exposed to more chemicals.
Totally, yeah.
So these days, you're just exposed to so many chemicals in general that you have to avoid them and reduce them as much as possible.
Wow, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So you would you say, because okay, what's really interesting is that your aura ring age is
Yes.
11 and a half years younger than your actual age.
Yes.
That's insane.
I know.
My
Like
husband showed me this and he's like, Sif, like, look at Kayla's aura ring stats. Like, this is, he's so inspired by you, by
Oh,
the
good. I
way.
love that.
So, how did you get it there? Would you say that it's things like the VO2 max? Like, is it
Mhm.
sauna? Like, what are all the factors that are
Yeah.
contributing to this?
Unfortunately, I don't think that there's one single, magic bullet here.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely everything, right?
Okay.
It's sleep. It is definitely the biggest shift, I'll say though, is when I incorporated the VO2 max training. So
Huh.
when I was doing 2 times per week of VO2 max training, and so that occurred. So I went from -6 years, -6.5 to -11.5 in 6 months. And so during that time, I was doing VO2 max training twice per week. So that was the biggest mover. I've since dialed it back, and I'm
Uh-huh.
excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
If it starts to shift the other way, I'll keep everybody updated. But incorporating VO2 max was the biggest change for sure.
Oh my God. So, my big takeaway from here is that I need to do this VO2 max training. I've been avoiding it like the plague because it is so, so hard.
It is so hard. You know what? And minimum, let's just say, the best workout is the one you're going to do, right?
Totally,
So
yeah. I mean, listen,
if
you don't have to
you're,
convince me for a second to get to the gym. Like, I love lifting
uh-huh,
heavy things, and I
yeah,
also really love Pilates, so I strength train 3 times a week,
love
and
it.
then I do
Yeah,
Pilates once a week, but it's the VO2 max day that I'm
yeah.
like, I just need to
Then just, like, just starting, then just don't do 4 minutes, do 2 minutes, and then
Do you think that that's, like, better than
it's definitely better than nothing, for
Okay.
sure, and that's the other thing is, like, it is very difficult,
Yeah.
and, I mean, this is keep in mind at this point in my life, like, this is my profession, basically,
Mhm.
and, like, I have to have good numbers, so I will do it whether or not I feel like it, but if you're just starting out and you're like, "I don't wanna do this to myself," just do half of it. I mean, we have to keep, like, reasonable workouts, or else we're just not gonna do it at all.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I actually do like that thought. 2 minutes, I think I can power through.
Yeah,
2
it's
minutes with a
better, right?
4-minute rest, it's okay, I can do that.
And then you'll be up to 4 minutes in no time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. You've actually very much inspired me because it's interesting that we're having this conversation because something that I have personally very much struggled with is a higher heart rate and
Mm,
very low HRV,
okay, yeah.
and I have a good handle on my stress. I don't think that that's
Mhm.
I don't think that that's the cause, but and I'm just trying to figure out what it is. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm playing around with all of these different things to see what is the thing that has the greatest impact, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, incorporate that, and, also, you do wanna focus on low level movement too. So,
Mhm.
for me, the biggest mover, but keep in mind, I do get, like, a minimum of 10,000 steps per day, so
Mhm.
that's also good, for low level movement, so it's kind
Yeah.
of a combination of all the things.
Yeah, the steps is amazing.
Yeah,
It's, like, so, so good, and it's also I don't know, like, as I said, I think that it really does help me with my productivity and all the things as well.
love it. Yeah.
So, I right now wanna talk about you like, basically fertility,
Yeah,
okay? Because you were telling me that you just frozen your eggs.
yeah.
So, number 1, do you think that women can do things to kind of prolong the quality of their eggs just over time as usual?
Yeah. Great question. So when I started to really think about like fertility preservation, as I called it, because
Mhm.
I'm 34 now, even though biologically about 10 years younger, but the reality is I'm 34. I got married at 32 and we want to have a big family. So we would like to have like 5 or 6 kids. So I started to think about fertility preservation. And when I did that, I started interviewing all of these different fertility doctors. And I kept asking them the same question. I
Mm.
said, do you think that you can improve your fertility? Can you extend your fertile window? Can you improve your egg quality? And a lot of conventional doctors had said no. But then I started to find, a little bit more open minded or holistic minded doctors, and they all had the same answer that yes, you can. So is also research linking. So let's talk about ovarian egg quality, and then we'll talk about, like, fertility in general, because there's no real way actually to measure your fertility
Mm.
from biomarkers until you just start trying. There's a few things that you could look at. So, if I was a woman listening to this podcast right now and I didn't know my AMH or anti-Müllerian hormone, that would be a number I would wanna know. It's not a be all end all, of course, because you only need 1 egg to get pregnant, but this is essentially a measurement of your egg reserve. So, how many eggs do you have?
Mhm.
If you are in your and you can have a high AMH, in your 30s, or you could have a low AMH in your 20s. It's very bio individual, but I would want to know that number. So, the other things that do matter that we know is environment and lifestyle. So, yes, sleep matters. Yes, nutrition matters. There's some research on environmental toxins and a lower AMH. So, that's really, I think, a interesting find. This is like newly developing research. And then we also know that there's about 3 months before conception that you can really go all in and optimize egg quality.
Mhm.
That egg quality and sperm quality, actually. So let's just say that you have a little bit of time and you want to do everything you can. I would try to, reduce hormone disrupting, endocrine disrupting chemicals, phthalates, parabens. These are things mostly in makeup products. I would look at reducing any other environmental toxins like heavy metals or glyphosate, really increase like antioxidants and polyphenols in the diet, make the diet really anti-inflammatory. There are some supplements, things like there's a prenatal that I like. It's called We Natal. Have
Mhm.
you heard of that
Yeah,
one?
I have.
Oh, good. I love that. So I think it's a good, just like all in one. It kind of hits a lot of the markers. So you have some methylated folate in there. You have some CoQ10. You have a little bit of vitamin D, some zinc. So it's a good like multi. So if you don't want to like get too deep in the weeds here with individual supplements, then I think that We Needle is a good one. But like things like are really popular fertility supplements. There is some interesting, like kind of newish literature on things like urolithin A, which help to improve the mitochondria. So might be able to improve the mitochondria and the oocytes. But yeah, I think that we do have some influence, but I want to say it with caution because there are also genetic situations that can really sadly, prohibit women from having children. So it's not all or nothing, but there it does seem to have an ability to improve egg quality and potentially extend fertility. I was also taking rapamycin. This
Mhm.
is very interesting, like new literature, but this is not for fertility, but this is for extending ovarian longevity because we know that once women hit menopause, our risk of all cause mortality increases substantially. Our
Right.
risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, all of the main killers. So I think the future of longevity for women is how can we extend the life of our ovaries. And in this rapamycin study, it did extend it pushed back menopause by about 5 years. So It's a new study, has not been yet peer reviewed, but it's exciting to see what
What
happens
was your
there.
protocol?
So I was taking, well, this you should definitely chat with your
Of
doctor
course,
about.
of
Yeah, so
course, yeah, I
maybe we'll
mean
just say that because I don't want it to get anyone, like, just specifically on mine, but it was a low dose of
uh
rapamycin, and I was just taking it once a week, so.
interesting, and then what made you decide to stop?
Well, my husband and I are gonna be trying to get pregnant soon, so,
Okay,
yeah,
very
probably in the next few months. I'm on a little bit of a detox protocol because during the fires, my total toxic burden, just really changed, so doing some detoxing, doing some EBOO, doing a lot of sauna, doing some binder
What's
protocols.
EBOO?
It's essentially an ultra high dose IV ozone, so it looks a little bit like a dialysis machine, so
Uh-huh,
takes your blood out,
uh-huh.
it filters it, it ozonates it, runs it through a UV light, and then puts it back in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you doing this in your own home?
No, this I'm going to a clinic for, so,
Okay,
yeah,
I see.
you do need a nursing staff to review it. I also did something interesting called, TPE, or
Uh-huh,
therapeutic plasma exchange.
uh-huh.
It's quite expensive right now, so I hope the cost goes down, but I think with this whole total toxic burden that we're talking about, um, it is super helpful in reducing those levels, so,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that we're touching on this because obviously, if for my listeners who are in LA,
Yeah,
I mean, the toxic burden from the fires, I think everyone's experiencing it. So,
yeah,
and even if they don't have, like, people aren't in LA, I'm
yeah,
sure toxic burden is something that we can all aim to reduce. So,
totally.
what are things that we can do to detoxify?
Yeah, and if you wanna know what your toxic burden is, there's a lab that I do, it's called the Total Toxic Burden by
Mm,
Vibrant Wellness, and it's going to look at molds and mycotoxins, heavy metals, and environmental toxins,
mhm,
so really helpful. Looks at things like BPA, we know is a massive issue right now with, micro and nanoplastics. So, with that being said, it really depends on how high your toxic burden is and how serious you wanna go. Really, like, low level, increasing fiber, increasing, cruciferous vegetables and sulforaphane is really helpful for, detoxing. I love taking some glutathione. Doing sauna is really helpful, so I increased my sauna from, like, 4 sessions per week to 5 or 6 after the fires. I take a binder. You wanna check with your doctor before this, but I take, like, a charcoal binder
mhm,
about a half an hour before I do my sauna session, and you wanna take it about 2 hours away from any medications or any, foods, because the binder can actually pull out some of those nutrients or pull out medications. But I'm doing more sauna, more binders. If you want to kind of work up from there. Oh, I also think lymphatic like drainage is amazing. So dry brushing or rebounding, getting like a little trampoline and just moving the lymph is super helpful. And then if you want to take it up a step from there are protocols from a company called Cellcore that is really nice for like opening up your drainage pathways. Because first you want to open them up, then you really initiate the detox, and then you kinda clean everything up. That can be helpful. Then moving on to, like, an EBOO, which is the high dose IV ozone
mhm,
that we talked about, or something like a plasmapheresis, which is actually taking out all the plasma in your body and then replacing it with something called albumin. And then, when I did a total toxic burden before the TPE and after, it had about a 10 to 15% reduction in these different, environmental toxins, molds, mycotoxins, things of that nature. So,
wow.
that's kinda, like, really low level and then working up too.
So we've talked about like female fertility, okay? Have you noticed that there is an epidemic of lower testosterone in men?
Yeah, definitely.
What's going on?
Well, I think it's a lot of factors. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
think it's reduced by about, like, fertility is reduced about 1% year over year for the past, like, 30 years,
That's
so
insane.
it's wild. It's so, so sad too. I mean, it's just
That's
heartbreaking.
insane. Yeah.
And then, yeah, we're seeing, like, lower than ever levels of testosterone in males, and I think a lot of different things are contributing. Sedentary behavior, we know that when you work out and do hard things, men's testosterone goes up.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. I think the food and the diet, we know that, Americans are heavier than ever,
Yeah,
and
it's
so
nuts.
that extra weight, unfortunately, does decrease the testosterone as well. I think general, like, healthfulness of the diets, the foods that they're choosing to eat in addition to the weight are not necessarily promoting, better testosterone. So when my husband and I met, he was on a really small dose of testosterone. I'd asked him to get off of it because, being on testosterone, harms fertility, and we
Yeah.
wanted to have babies. So he did it. It was great. He didn't even really ask any questions. And so I helped to optimize his testosterone, and it went from naturally, I think it was around like 650 up to like 916. So, what I did
Wow.
for him was I got him a gut test. We optimized his gut health. We used a GI map by Genova. We looked at his total toxic burden as well and reduced some of those toxins. He started doing sauna on a frequent basis, which also can lead to higher testosterone levels. He maintained his workout regimen. So he works out, 4 or 5 times a week, strength training, really, really important. He added some more cold plunging in there, which seemed to help boost the testosterone. And then he started going to bed earlier, which I would think was a huge one for him too, because we talked about deep sleep and the beneficial effects of hormones. And so he used to like eat late, go to bed at like 11. Now he
Sounds like
eats at
Ash.
like, yeah, he eats at, 3:30 is our dinner time now. And then
Wow.
8:30 we go to bed. So with all of these changes, it's like, again, it's like lifestyle, right? Like you have to improve your lifestyle so that your body can operate the way it's supposed to.
Wait, if your dinner is at 3:30, when are you having your breakfast?
Early. So I have my first, let's call it a meal, but it's a protein coffee
Uh-huh.
before the gym. So I go to the gym at about like 6:30 or so,
Mhm.
very slightly because I don't use an alarm clock to wake up. But I have a protein coffee with about 20 grams of protein. So I have organic biodynamic coffee. I have Amra colostrum in there. I have 5 grams of creatine, but now apparently there's a new study out that creatine at 5 grams is not beneficial. So I'm now
What's it showing?
increasing
So
it
it's
to,
it's
it's
more?
showing no change, yeah, it's showing no change with the creatine or without,
Mhm.
so I need to, like, dive deeper into the literature, but, from a quick glance, that's what I've seen, so now I'm gonna upping it to 10 grams of creatine, we'll see what happens,
Mhm.
and then I have about 20 grams of collagen peptides in my coffee, so that's when I
What
break
brand are
my
you using
fast.
for that?
I use Thorne.
Okay.
I really enjoy Thorne.
Thorn is great.
They do a lot of, independent lab testing, so I enjoy that. So do that, then I have breakfast right when I get home from the gym. So I'm eating early,
Mhm.
breaking. I also have learned throughout this whole process, I used to always train, fasted, and I had some great conversations with Dr. Stacy Sims, and she told me that women trade better fed. So, I've seen better gains, and I've tended to feel better by having that. You don't have to have anything big, just like a little bit of protein, 15, 20 grams. So I have that. And I have my full breakfast when I get home.
What are you eating for breakfast?
Yeah, so I eat protein. So I have usually like four eggs,
Mhm.
and then I'll have some sort of fermented food. So could be a kimchi, could be like I really like this from Erewhon. It's this fermented carrot. Really
Mm,
tasty. So
yum.
love that. I do a big salad. So I do like the either like a kale, white bean salad. Then I add a ton of sprouts on top of that. So like broccoli sprouts because
Yeah.
they are loaded with sulforaphane, which is really good for detoxification. And then I will do a little bit of avocado. My salad has a little bit of EVO on it. And then I do a coconut yogurt with additional protein. So I'm aiming to get about 100 grams of protein per day. So
Okay.
I do a coconut yogurt and then put the again the collagen peptides in there, or I sometimes use a protein powder too.
What's your favorite?
A Thorn again. Yeah,
They have a
Thorn.
protein powder? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have a protein powder. I've tried a few other ones. I think we have one from Kinyon at the house too,
Uh-huh.
but I think Thorn for the most part is like ideal. Um, so I do that, and then I do some blueberries, I do some pomegranates, I do some fiber, like I do some Zen basil seeds. Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of
Yeah,
this
they're
company?
great.
They are great. So it's supposed to be like half of your daily fiber intake. It's kind of like a chia seed.
Mhm.
And then I do a little bit of Brazil nut. So I'll do like half of Brazil nut. I kind of use this yogurt as like a delivery mechanism for
Yeah, it
all
sounds
this
like
like
it,
good
yeah.
stuff. So I put some hemp seeds in there and some flax, if I didn't say that already. And then I'll have my dinner at like 3:30.
So it's
So
essentially 2 meals and then your protein coffee.
yes.
And then you go to bed by 8:30.
Yep.
And so for your husband, that's, like, I guess, like, one of the factors that have increases testosterone as well, so
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he saw a big shift in testosterone optimization. It was really all the things. So we can't pinpoint like
Uh-huh.
one exact thing, but if I had to guess why our testosterone levels so low, I would say just the sedentary behavior, not moving, and not having really high quality diets or sleep.
What's the contribution of sunlight to this, would you say?
Oh yeah. Well, I think sunlight's really helpful. I mean, I think it helps with the sleep. That's a big contributor to testosterone optimization. I don't know the direct impact of sunlight, but I think it definitely has ancillary benefits for sure on testosterone.
Interesting. Okay, I wanna leave some time for audience questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one that I have is, can you share your red light therapy routine if you have one?
Yeah, it's changed a few times. So my red light panel is actually built into my sauna now.
Mhm.
So I'm doing red light every single day, and I'm doing it for about 5 minutes on each side.
Mm.
So I'll do standing in the red light and then switch to the back. So for me, it's daily. I think it depends on what you're trying to optimize here. If you're trying to do it for skin health or you're trying to just do it for mitochondrial health, it may vary a little bit. I also have a Lima laser. You know that one?
I've heard of it, yeah, but I don't have one
So
myself.
that is like it's a 20-minute or so application on the face. I'm starting this new like skin longevity protocol to see
Yeah.
what we can do. Because I spent a lot of time in the sun. I still love the sun. It's like very anti, I guess, longevity industry, but I love it. It's good for health.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's hard.
So, basically, it, like, depends
Daily,
on
for me, daily, 5 minutes each side.
cool. Um, what is your favorite clean deodorant?
Tried so many of them. Currently, I'm liking one called Skin Foodie.
Mhm.
It was a local brand actually when I lived in Ohio, and now I am ordering it. Very natural. I also like another one called Monks. Have you heard of this one, Monks?
No.
So that one's nice too. It's like a spray. But I can be really sensitive. So any deodorant that has the first ingredient as what is that white powder stuff?
So it's not oh my gosh,
Baking soda.
baking soda, yeah,
Yeah.
and, like, sodium bicarbonate,
Yeah, yeah,
baking
yeah.
soda.
I know that's the exact thing I was thinking of too. So any deodorant with baking
Soda,
soda
yeah.
as the first ingredient, it kinda gives a little bit of a rash for me.
Okay, and okay, I think you need to explain why is it important to get a clean deodorant? Like, why
Yeah.
why why are the traditional ones not great for you?
Yeah, I mean, I switched so many years ago, but I mean, aluminum is a big issue, and if you think about it, you're applying this, like, right to your lymph nodes, so you have
Mhm.
a lot of lymph nodes, in the armpit, so we don't wanna be putting, like, known toxins, right on the lymph nodes, so aluminum is the biggest one for me that I really try to stay away from.
Good to know. Do you have any tips on hair growth?
Yes, red light therapy is really beneficial. So I'm doing it depends on what type of cap you have.
Mhm.
I'm doing 10 minutes per day just to see how thick I can get my hair. Um, it looks like literally like a little hat.
Mhm.
So that can be really great. Also, there is some good research on rosemary oil.
Mhm.
If
Love
you don't want
rosemary
to
oil.
go down the route of like a minoxidil. Also, my friends at OneSkin just launched something called the OS hair.
I
So
love OneSkin.
yeah,
Oh my god, they're incredible. I didn't know they had a hair product.
yeah, they just came out with it. So their entire premise as a company is like clearing out senescent cells.
Uh-huh.
And they have their OS1 peptide for the face,
So good.
and it's good at reversing biological age of the skin. But yeah, they just rolled out a hair product.
So what is it? It's like a serum
Yeah,
or
it's a serum. It's like a water-based serum. I just started using it. You do a little microneedling roller, and then
Uh-huh.
you just apply it to the areas you want to focus on.
Uh-huh.
And the idea behind it again is like clearing out senescent cells so that the hair can become stronger and thicker.
Wow, I'm totally gonna buy that. Honestly, they can sell anything and I'll buy it. Like that peptide, the
Yeah.
OS1 peptide is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're great. And I mean, it's a female founded company for women PhDs. I mean, like, I'm totally gonna support that any day. And their
Yeah,
products are amazing.
they're incredibly impressive. I've met the founders as well, and they're just really wonderful.
Yeah, they're great.
Okay, so the last question, and I don't know if you'll have a straightforward answer on this, but I do want you to have a go at it.
Yeah.
Someone asked, "What are your tips for a woman in her mid-30s who can't get rid of stomach fat? Is it hormonal?"
Well, again, this is like, yeah, I don't really have a straight answer because
Yeah, that's what I figured.
it really depends, right? I mean, have you looked at how many calories you're consuming? How often are you moving your body? There is a good chance, right? We know that what was the age again?
Mid-30s, she
Mid
said.
30s. So I mean, kinda unlikely that you're entering into, like, a perimenopause at that point,
Yeah.
but, I mean, potentially possible, but, yeah, I mean, first, I would make sure that you're really dialing on all the other factors,
Mhm.
there's a lot of ways that calories are, like, snuck into things, like drinks and all of that, so just check that, really focusing on your sleep, I think, like, imbalancing your when your sleep is imbalanced, then it can lead to, like, hormonal imbalances, so, yeah, I mean, it could be.
I mean, I think the sleep factor, it's interesting because it's, like, the simplest thing at the end of the day because it's free.
Yeah,
We
exactly, it
all
is
do
free,
it
yeah,
every day.
yeah.
And I feel like it's just not given the importance that it needs to be given, so it's nice
Yeah.
that we're having this conversation because sleep is incredibly important, and I think anyone can just try to optimize it. Like, I like to do mini challenges with myself when
Oh,
I
I love
fall
that.
off the radar a little bit,
Yeah.
so this is a good reminder for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And your sleep environment can be so helpful, right? We didn't really talk about that, but I mean, not eating close to bed, that's why I eat at 3:30. That's why I
Yeah.
eat dinner at 3:30. I believe that once the sun is set, which right now it doesn't set until like 7:30 in LA, but you definitely shouldn't be eating because when you're eating, it sends cues to your body to not produce melatonin. So,
Mm,
melatonin helps you fall asleep. But also, if you eat a heavy meal and your body's processing it, then you're not going to get into those deeper stages of sleep. So, not eating too close to bed, keeping a cool room, something like I keep mine at 65.
same.
Yeah, and then, no light, like no blue light. If you do like red light phone trick, you can switch your phone to red light. Apple TV actually has like a way to use a color filter. I didn't watch TV like prior to my husband, but he enjoys it. He was in the entertainment industry, so he likes it. Um, there's a color filter that's red, or you can do blue light blockers.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just making sure you're trying to put yourself into a peaceful state. Like when my mom was over, she, like, loved watching, like, murder shows.
No, I literally my husband is the same way where he'll watch, like, the darkest things, and I'm very sensitive to I
Yeah.
don't like to watch any of that,
Yeah,
but
it's
I'll,
like
like, hear it, and I'm like, "This is, like, so jarring." Like, how are you like, I'm hearing it from the bedroom, and, like,
uh-huh.
our living room is far away, and I'm
Yeah.
like, the fact that I'm, like, hearing this already is, like, disrupting my nervous system, like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
it's so anxiety inducing, and I'm like, apparently it's a thing that women, like these scary shows,
No, absolutely
but
not.
it's like that is the opposite of what you need to be doing because you need to be reducing your resting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, hear it you heard it here.
Yeah, so those are just a few little tips. I don't do sleep supplements, but my husband does,
Mm,
and I've made him this, like, little stack that has apigenin, glycine, some magnesium. I also love a topical magnesium spray.
mhm,
That's really nice because you get to, like, give yourself a little massage. And then there is something called Sleep Aid by Vital Nutrients, but
mhm.
he swears by this, and all my friends that come over that take it, they, like, love this sleep stack.
I love that. Kayla, this has been a joy. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Thank you. KaylaBarnes.com, KaylaBarnes.com is my website. And my Instagram is Kayla Barnes. And yeah, I have a protocol too, protocol.kaylabarnes.com. And I think I'm one of the only women that is posting long form YouTube content. So you can find like my midday routine and my fertility optimization plan, all that stuff on my YouTube.
I love that, and honestly, thank you for the work that you're doing. I think you're, like, really just paving the way and, like, doing so much for women as a biohacker, so I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you for being all of her guinea pig.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it's been fun, We just are not moving at the rate that we need to in terms of, like, medical literature for women, so I'm just figuring I'll try as much as I can and share what works and share what doesn't and see if we can move this along a little bit faster.
I love that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.